Hello and welcome to another edition of the Mayor Dan Paletko Show. I think you're going to find this show extremely interesting, and I have as my guest the head of the Great Lakes Water Authority, the CEO, Sue McCormick. Thank you so much for joining me.
My pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
And the Great Lakes Water Authority kind of came out of the water system that the city of Detroit at one time. Can you give us a little background as to where we're at now and where we were before?
Happy to. This historic agreement between the principals of the three counties, Wayne, Oakland, Macomb, and the mayor really came out of the city's bankruptcy. And that conversation launched this authority, which started on January 1st, 2016. And, my favorite way of describing it is we had a department of the city, which everyone believed was a service that the city provided, particularly for the advantage of the residents of the city of Detroit, but it certainly provided a good service to the region. But today what we have is a completely independent authority, a not-for-profit entity that still serves the region, including the city of Detroit. It owns no special privilege to any one community, but an obligation to provide good service to all and distribute our costs equitably. I think the biggest advantage to this authority is now we're really looking for how do we continue to leverage additional benefit of the authority's service to each and every one of the communities that we serve. And
I was very glad that you were selected as CEO. Many of us in the suburbs had the highest regard for you, and when the appointment was coming up, I remember joining a writing campaign and phone call to make sure, so I was very pleased that you were selected. But by the same token, you've always been very responsive as a mayor. I feel, and just really want to thank you. Like when we had earlier, I think it was last year, when we had a little condition in the color of the water and some issues. Some people thought there was a different state. It was kind of cloudy. You met with us, kept us in the loop, and that didn't turn out to be as serious of an issue, but the response was very good. And what was that kind of all about?
Thank you, and thank you for the support that you have shown me. I really do appreciate that. We had an incident in one of our treatment plants where, in the process of doing a normal maintenance activity, a basin cleaning, some of the particles that we move off the bottom of the filtration process made their way back to the head of the plant. It's not a public health issue, but it can be an aesthetic issue. People certainly observed cloudy water and in some cases rusty water. But I think the system responded very quickly, getting notice out to customers. We operate on what we call the precautionary principle, which means if there's ever anything for which we have any doubt about the safety of the water, our first and primary concern is to make sure that we assure people of safety. So in those situations, we'll say boil the water while we conduct all of our testing to make sure we understand what's going on. And when we're confident about the results, then we'll lift a boil water notice. So, it's safety first for us. Probably the thing that the system is known the most for and for which our customers appreciate the most is the absolute quality and safety of the water that we provide. And so that's always going to be our first concern.
The one thing I've noticed, I get an opportunity periodically to travel in different parts of the nation, and immediately I always like our local water and the taste of it, the quality of it, how it looks. Sometimes you get into some areas where it seems like they tell me it'll have a high iron content, but definitely has a different taste. Our water seems to have a very excellent taste to it.
We are enviable, I think, around the country and maybe around the globe. We have some of the best source water in the world with the Great Lakes as our resource, and that's a wonderful resource to start with as we treat the water. So, it only gives us good quality, but we really have unlimited capacity in our source water. So, like no other region in the country, I think we have those advantages that we're working with.
Now, one item that recently came up is the fact that people are always looking at the cost, but a real positive thing happened. You tell us about how the rating agencies have greatly increased the rating for the Great Lakes Water Authority versus when it was City of Detroit, and how that has a direct effect on all us ratepayers.
Well, we knew that as DWSD went into bankruptcy as a department of the city, one of the things that happened is our bond rating, which of course that affects our cost of borrowing and our ability to borrow. Our bonds were rated junk status by the rating agencies. That means that many investors couldn't invest in us, and we would have difficulty selling our bonds. As we launched the authority, at the launch of the authority and then shortly thereafter, we were upgraded by the rating agencies on 2 different occasions. And in November of 2016, when we did our inaugural bond sale, which included some refinancing, we refinanced about $1.3 billion in bonds, and we saved for our customers $309 million.
That's going to show up in the bottom line, and so
absolutely,
that is good news. That is good news. One of the items that have been in constantly before all of us has been the Flint situation, and I know that, and it's really not our position to determine. Although I thought it was a questionable decision when they decided, and those of us in the Great Lakes Water Authority wanted to maintain the customers we have, because all of us working together saves, there's a saving in cost. But as I understand it, Great Lakes Water Authority is now going to supply the water to Flint on an ongoing basis?
Well, we certainly believe that that's where we're headed. We have an agreement in principle. It's a multi-party sort of an arrangement. It takes advantage of the fact that whether you believe that the investment that was made in the creation of the Carragandi Water Authority, which now has its own Lake Huron intake and has a very large raw water main and can provide raw water to communities who wish to develop their own treatment facilities, whether anyone questions or whether that was a good decision or not, the fact of the matter is that public investment has been made. And as a part of our most recent conversations with Flint, we've been able to propose that we take advantage of that investment for the benefit of the region. And I go back to the days when we were talking about building a loop for Flint that would also provide redundant service for Lapeer and Mayfield and Imlay City. And in fact, what we're doing is taking advantage of the fact that now we have 2 entities, and if you connect between the 2 entities, you close a loop. And as a result of that, we can provide both primary service to Flint as well as assure redundant backup service to Flint and Lapeer and Mayfield and Imlay City, and we can retain Flint as a customer in that process.
So that will assure them good water supply and at a reasonable cost. But it just seemed like the region, we already have a system in place, and to keep that, and now with the redundancy, it's a win. I feel so bad for the people, and I know we've had many, our local state representative and State Senator Kniezek did these campaigns for all of us donating bottled water for those residents, and although I saw some of the water that people said they were drinking, I would not drink water that looked like what they were utilizing. But it reminds me of a situation, a good friend of mine out of Toledo, and when Toledo had the algae problem just a couple years ago, and she started to tell me, you bathe in the water, you cook in the water, all the different uses, we really cannot survive without water. It's a key ingredient for all of us for life to sustain itself. So it really is probably your CEO of one of the most major items and lifelines to all of us in southeastern Michigan.
When people talk to me about water service, and when I talk to our staff at GLWA about water service, I remind us that even though we treat every drop of water to drinking water standards, when you look at what we support in a local community, we support drinking water, but that supports sanitation.
Yes.
It supports fire protection.
Yes.
It supports the hospitals and businesses and the economic development of a community. It is the lifeblood of urban development. Without these critical services, water and wastewater, we couldn't have urban environments. So every day, these systems are dependent upon us, and we take that very seriously, and we're proud to say we have a good history of reliable service and quality service.
Now, the portion of Detroit with the sewage disposal plant, you also operate?
That's true. We have We have all of those services that used to be provided by DWSD that served more than just the city. So that does include the very large wastewater treatment facility. It's the largest single site facility in North America. So it is an impressive facility. And we have a new philosophy about how we look to operate. And I would liken this to the transformation that we all have seen in solid waste, where before we used to just call it garbage, and everything that we developed in our homes and businesses, we put out in a single can and it went to the landfill. And we had a real transformation in that sector when we began to think about resource recovery. And I don't think that there's hardly anybody on the surface of the earth today, particularly in the United States, that wouldn't know the 3 R's: reduce, reuse, recycle.
Right.
And I think we are on the brink of a similar sort of a transformation on that side of the sector of services. We're already looking at how we can recover resources in that process. As you know, we built a biosolids dryer facility, and better than a third of our solid waste is now being converted into a reusable fertilizer, Class A fertilizer pellet that can be marketed and distributed. We have certainly done augmentation on farmers' fields, but we're also going to be looking at reducing our energy footprint, if not reducing energy, perhaps even being energy neutral, maybe being an energy generator, and recovering precious nutrients from the cycle, which could include things like recovering phosphorus, because struvite is a resource limited in nature. So we have a new philosophy. I think one of the more dramatic things in the process as we're now embarking on our wastewater master plan is we say the pipes don't know the boundaries. So we have customers who interface with us through these very large pipes and drainage districts. And what we want to do is really take a look at how we utilize all that infrastructure and work together in a coordinated operating way, maybe hold flow back in some areas of the system when there's rainfall in another. And we think that we have quite a potential to avoid new investment on the system by leveraging all the investment that's already been made.
Well, that's exciting. For residents in Dearborn Heights, the northern portion of the city, the wastewater will go to the Great Lakes Water Authority. The southern portion is in Ecorse Creek drain, and that goes to the downriver treatment plant, which Wayne County owns, but we're in the process of negotiating a transfer from Wayne County to the 13 communities, and I've been very involved in that particular process. And no one is aware. If you could see underground all the pipes that are underneath for water, for wastewater, people would be surprised. But one of the things is it troubling when you see, like in I think that's Fraser or Sterling Heights, a collapse, and is there a potential for collapses in the system? Because I know some of the pipes are owned by Wayne County, some of the pipes are owned by Great Lakes Water Authority. Do we always run the risk, or is that kind of sinkholes forming kind of a unique item that you can't prepare for, or can you prepare for?
I think we have a little more ability, certainly on the wastewater collection side, to do asset management, do physical inspections, use cameras, to really do good, high-quality condition assessment and avoid many of those situations. I'd be the first to say you probably can't avoid all of them, but because you can't see whether there are voids in the ground above those pipes, which could create an issue. On the water side, it's a little different. You know, we listen carefully for leakage, and we look at the age of pipes. We watch, the main break history. But generally, the water main breaks are, though troublesome, and they can destroy pavement and things of that nature, and we want to manage those as effectively as we can. The very large diameter sewer pipes are by far, I think, the largest public risk. And good asset management, good condition assessment, good inspection, and appropriate renewal are what we need to be doing. So is the potential out there? Until we really have good, robust asset management programs, I think the potential does exist.
In the city of Dearborn Heights, and I've been on either mayor and the city council for many years, but about 35 years ago, we started a water main replacement program. So we've been changing the Oldison, as you've indicated, where there were a lot of leaks a need to do repairs, we've been replacing those. But I look at my neighboring communities and I don't see where they're replacing any of these water lines. And some of the water lines were over 100 years old. When these cities have been here for some time. And I'll never forget one time that we always measure the amount of water that we purchase from Great Lakes Water Authority. We look at how much we sell the customers. We know we're going to lose some because of fire, maintenance, and other things that will take place in a year. But we try to make sure we don't lose more than about 8 or 9%, which we've been told is good. I've been told there's a couple communities that are enclosed within the city of Detroit that have water loss rates of 50% or above, which is causes, if we had that kind of rate, if I buy it for X number cubic gallon or whatever it is, I would have to include that loss to the customer. So we try to keep that under control, at the same time hoping that provides service to the public, doesn't create any kind of wash away of the ground underneath. But very important to do the maintenance, no question about it.
Well, I compliment you if you've been working at a proactive approach to water main replacement.
We have, this community has.
That's a wonderful thing, and you're absolutely right. The national standards say if you are at water loss about or unaccounted for water of about 8%, that's a really good performance. So that's my compliments to you on that.
Thank you. And we hold our DPW to that standard, that now that we've achieved that, we want to maintain it. So
I think there's another risk coming for communities who have not been properly investing. Maybe it's an opportunity. We have new road funding coming as a result of the work that was done this past year in the legislature. It would be a shame, I think one that the public would hold us accountable for, if we make huge investments in our roads and we don't address the underground infrastructure.
Agreed.
So I think communities need to take a fresh look at that. We're certainly going to be looking for, wherever we are renewing assets in the GLWA system, we partner with our member communities and look at what opportunities they have for asset renewal within the framework of the projects that we're doing. And I think that we could all do that and leverage the public's investment across agencies, across infrastructure systems, make sure that we are not going to be throwing away the investment that our citizens are making.
So under your leadership, there's, I think, a very good, closer relationship between us as customer communities and the Great Lakes Water Authority. And what do you think is your biggest challenge going forward at this point?
I brought with me this study that's been done by the Water Research Foundation. And over the course of the last decade or so, we have seen about a 22% reduction across the country in water use. Well, if you think about the cost of our system being the whole of a pie, and all the costs have to be paid for, so we divide that pie up in accordance with methodology we have agreed to is equitable. But the pie doesn't shrink, but the users' needs do. We're all going to pay more because we have this, we still have the cost of the system to incur.
Correct.
So we really have two strategies, and that's what we're working on as an organization. On the water side, the strategy is shrink the pie to the degree that we can, and that means being really smart about the capital investment. Part of that is asset management. Part of it is taking a look at whether we need all of the facilities today that were built yesterday for larger service populations and higher usage. If we can shrink the pie, that's a benefit to everyone. And of course the other is we want to be the provider of choice in the region. And we really want customer communities who are making that decision about, do they continue to expand their local system, perhaps a system that relies on wells, or do they join Great Lakes Water Authority as a community of member communities and take advantage of our economy of scale. We're very happy that Flint has made the decision to stay with GLWA. We have been very successful since our launch in having customers renew their contracts, and we're looking for more customers to bring to the system. And those are the two things that we'll be looking for to make sure that we can continue our reinvestment and that we can do that and still be affordable for our customers.
Yeah, I know there's the trend towards bottled water. When I was in the legislature, there was a big issue on how much Nestle was grabbing water out of the springs in Jackson, and I forget the other area. It's in the lower peninsula, but the upper portion of it, and the large volume that's being removed. I also felt that at some point we're going to see the western part of the states try to grab onto our Great Lakes water, because the population boom in Phoenix and out in California and the southern states, the resources cannot really support some of those population gains. So those are going to be interesting things that we'll have to deal with in the future. Well, one of the things that we initiated, we're going to rely on your testing as Great Lakes Water, but every once in a while we do our own testing in the city, and I partnered with a corporation that is going to help us on the tracking diagnostic trends and stuff. And we think, because right now there's a lot of data, but I don't have people that can really sit there and concentrate and focus on maybe trends. And we look forward to looking at those trends, and if something looks not favorable or we start to see, we know that we'll be able to contact your group and try to determine it. But I see this as kind of an even extra safety net for the residents of Dearborn Heights. So I kind of signed up, and we'll see how it goes. But it's not, I've told everybody we're completely reliant on the water, because all the testing I receive and all the data shows that the water is, it's not marginally, it's way above the quality that it's very good to drink. But this will give us kind of an indication. Although one of the things that the company that I dealt with pointed out would not be a factor in our case, but like they did Mount Pleasant, and they found out that when the college students weren't there, the water usage by the dorms in that whole area went down. So consequently, the water sat in the pipes a lot longer, so the quality decreased. That shouldn't happen. I don't have any turnover or seasonal turnover, but we thought that that extra diagnostic would be a benefit to our residents. So it was very affordable, and we're going to start doing that. So we'll be taking your data and some of our data, putting it together, and then tracking the trends.
Well, you know, that's a very interesting thing, and I would love to see what you get from that additional analysis. You know, we are in partnership one another as we serve the residents in your community and in all of the other GLWA communities. You know, we deliver water to your doorstep at metered connections. You have a distribution system and a customer relationship. So together, we make sure that your residents are getting absolutely the best of what we can provide together. So I welcome the opportunity to work with you on the information that you get.
Well, we'll share with you. They're just downloading the system now, and we'll be putting that all together. So we'll be looking forward to see if that is an extra benefit to the to our thing. But yeah, we both service the same customer at a different level, but at the same time we're partners together. But in my time as mayor, I can't tell you how under your leadership where we've been able to work closer together. I think this has been really a great improvement. I think it would have been even a greater improvement if it had been seen years ago by the city of Detroit, but unfortunately it took the bankruptcy to force all the changes. But now that we're where we're at, I just see it continuing to get a closer relationship, and we got the best water, I think, in the nation, if not in the world. So it's a plus. But I want to thank you for being a guest. Have we covered, or is there something else that you would like to say that I didn't cover?
No, I think we've had a very nice conversation. We've covered a whole field of issues. So I thank you for the opportunity to be here with you today, and I look forward to our continued partnership.
Well, I want to thank you for being my guest and for everything that you've done as the CEO, and we look forward to supplying our residents at Dearborn Heights with some of the best water in the world. So I want to thank all the viewers in the city of Dearborn Heights for watching another edition of the Mayor Dan Paletko Show. And Sue McCormick, thank you for being my guest.
Thank you.
Okay.